Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. I want to welcome to the show Michael Benson and Craig Singer. Michael is the author of more than 60 books on organized crime, including Gangsters versus Nazis. He regularly appears on ID Investigation Discovery Channel and is the recipient of the Academy of American Poets Award. And Craig Singer is a multiple award-winning and Emmy-nominated director. And I will name a few films from his filmography: 645, A Good Night to Die, and Dark Ride. And today we are discussing the book they wrote together, Moguls, The Lives and Times of Film Pioneers Nicholas and Joseph Schenck, Power, Scandal, Mob, Marilyn Monroe. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much.
Let's start with pronunciation. It's Schenck.
I was going to say, I bet you I'm saying it wrong.
The ancestors have softened the pronunciation, but back in the day, they were Skanks.
Skank. I love that. Skank.
Enemies called them the Skunks.
Okay, yeah, because I think I was saying Schenck. Okay, so it's Skank. That's even better. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I love Russian. I know we've been touching on through email, but I love the book. I mean, it's such a page turner, and my God, the things that these men were both involved in. And this is like a part of film history that is really unknown. I mean, we hear so much about the other moguls like Jack Warner and Louis B. Mayer and Cohn and Daryl Zanuck, but we don't hear much about. I had never heard of these guys before reading this book. So what was the inspiration for both of you to do this? I'll pick who to start first. When I have two writers, people always don't know when to jump. So we'll just take turns.
That's a great question right there.
Yeah, Craig, what would appeal to you about it?
Well, a couple of things. First, when the great nephew who introduced me to this whole world they now go by Schenck. So as Michael said, but I directed a film years ago called A Good Night to Die, and one of the EPs was a gentleman named Jeff Schenck, and he told me once that his family, were heavily involved as kind of pioneers in the film industry, and that really captured my imagination because I love film history and all things cinema. And so I really kind of dove down a rabbit's hole and discovered that these guys were, kind of the power behind the power. And that always intrigued me. It's like that great scene in On the Waterfront at the end when Johnny Friendly is getting, convicted with the help of Terry Malloy. And then you got that one shot of the kind of the boss of the boss who says, I'm not here if he calls me. And it always intrigued me how there's always the power behind the power. And
right.
Out that these guys were like the bosses of Louis B. Mayer and Irving Thalberg. That was it. I was hooked, and then started the journey, and fortunately found an amazing partner in Michael, who I give all the credit in the world to, because were it not for him, I don't think we'd be speaking right now. And so and it's we were blessed and privileged by having Terry Winter write the foreword for our book. And when I met Terrence at a Producers Guild event, and I said to him, this was years ago, I said, how come nobody's ever done anything about the Skanks before? And he's like, he lit up. He's like, I know, it's like so many great stories and this and that. Yeah. So I think one of the reasons people are going to be excited and interested in Moguls is the fact that so few people have really heard of these gentlemen who were so instrumental in so many facets of the entertainment business.
The supporting cast is really well known.
Exactly.
Reason I emphasize the pronunciation
is a big presence in it, but
right. Reason I emphasize the pronunciation of the name is I think that the fact that their name was Schenck made them hide behind other logos. I mean, the Joseph M. Schenck Presents only lasted until the end of the silent era, and then he became 20th Century, and then 20th Century
right.
Fox. Nick Schenck never made any attempt whatsoever to get his name on MGM Pictures. He stayed behind Marcus Lowe's trademark, and Lowe's Inc. ran MGM. So
right.
Nick, and possibly, it sounded Jewish. And these guys were not advertising their religion very much because they knew that there were conservative politicians who didn't like the idea of Hollywood being run by a small group of un-Christians, as they put it.
And as Michael, the earlier point, a friend of mine recently passed away, Danny Selznick, who was the son of David O. Selznick. And Danny used to tell me how they were called the Skunks. Behind their back, of course, but that was their nickname. So yeah, I guess for many, many reasons, they did hide behind the logos.
Right. And some of my favorite parts of the book are before the movies. Because when they first come over on the boat, the movies don't exist. They're a gimmick. And there's one breakfast meeting at a deli in Lower Manhattan where it's Adolf Zukor, Jesse Lasky, and the Schenck brothers and Marcus Lowe, and they're inventing the movies.
Right.
It's Edison has invented this technique. It's considered a gimmick. All the films are just waves coming in or horses galloping. No narrative. If we could make this art, we could make people sit in theaters long enough to watch an entire play on film, and this was just revelatory.
That's right. Yeah, really incredible, and people really kind of were very. Films were not art. Films were just novel and kind of lower class and Drac and all this. So they were very opportunistic and visionary at the simultaneously. I think that meetings and that's when you kind of see the connection between the small group of people, Marcus Lowe and Adolf Zucker and the Skanks, and they were really one degree of separation between a lot of the heads of the industry.
Go ahead. Sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. Now, you coming from also a large background of true crime. I mean, this has its share of true crime stories. Was that a big appeal for you to decide to write this book, or was it just a story?
Yeah, well, I found it just fascinating that these guys who had influence over so much influence over America were unknown. It was a surprise to me that there was as much gangster involvement as there was, and the Skanks were just smarter than the mob. The mob came in to shake them down, and Joe and Nick had a quick conversation, put together a scheme, and pretty soon everybody's making money off of
they took advantage of it.
Right. As long as the projections never get a raise, sure, we'll give you $500,000 a year.
So Robert, when it comes to Michael, I made a he can refuse. So I tapped into his true crime background. Terrible. I apologize. But one of my favorite parts of the book is the Palisades amusement section. And, these guys were really, truly serial entrepreneurs, but just the way that even, they kind of embraced showmanship with open arms. Nick, in the case of Palisades, and obviously he pulled that way back, but how it had everything other than the ocean, like Coney Island. So what did they do? They built, the world's largest 400 by 600 foot saltwater swimming pool, stuff like that. Incredible. And go ahead, Michael. I see you.
Well, from a psychological point of view, it's my favorite Nick section.
Yeah.
Because when Nick is running Lowe's Inc., he is holed up in his huge mansion on the North Shore of Long Island, or he's in his penthouse office in Times Square. He's not making public appearances. He's paying people to keep his names out of the paper. But when he's running Palisades Park, he's out there with his walking stick and his boater.
Yeah.
And he's a carny barker. He's telling tall tales, and everybody's just eating it up. He's having publicity stunts. 6-year-old kids swimming across the Hudson River, just in exchange for all the hot dogs they can eat. It's just a different guy. And I think when Palisades Park is no longer part of his daily routine, because Marcus Lowe dies and he has to step up, he loses a little something.
Honored for its contract.
Yeah, it's and they named, I think that the day he died, they named the Midway at Palisades Park the Nick Schenck Midway. So it's I always felt like Palisades Park was Nick Schenk's Rosebud.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't want to leave it. Was my impression as well.
No,
it was
no. No, and he didn't like the movie people. He wasn't going to go out west and live with the MGM people. He was going to stay 3,000 miles away and do it by phone.
Right.
I think what else is really kind of neat and interesting, and I agree that this would make a terrific series or feature film or documentary. All of the above. I think what's interesting is like so many little tidbits and tangential versions of the stories within Moguls in other films, whether it's, you know, the Eddie Mannix section of Hollywoodland or whether it's Babylon. There's like so many kind of things that kind of hint to this.
Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Eddie Mannix is the hero of Hail Caesar.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, and Lena Lamont and Norma Desmond, both based in part on Norma Talmadge.
That's right.
Who wasn't evil and didn't speak with a squeaky voice, but she was from Brooklyn, and talkies weren't for her.
Right. And was Nick? I mean, if Nick liked the park so much more, what? I mean, I know you just once Lowe died, he had to step up, but did he really not have a choice? If he had left, would the company have just folded and he felt he had to step up, or?
Well, Carolyn Lowe, has a talk with Nick, and she says the boys aren't ready to take over the company. They're teenagers. They don't show the inclination to be moguls anyway. Right. Nick, could you buy my stock, run the company, but do me one favor? And he says, sure, anything you want. He says, don't fire John Gilbert, which was a problem because John Gilbert was drinking himself out of the business at the time and was on the verge of being fired, but instead gets $1 million per picture contract because Carolyn Lowe made it a condition for Nick to take over Lowe's Inc.
Right.
But again,
he couldn't be fired, which was Louis B. Mayer couldn't stand it.
These guys were good businessmen that I think the Lowe's opportunity just eclipsed anything, Palisade
money.
Even scratch.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he's about to become the 8th richest man in the country and the only Jew in the top 10. Buy Palisades Park.
Right. Yeah, that's also what I gathered from it.
Sad but rich.
Right. Of course. How did you both write a book together? I mean, was it a matter of, okay, I'll take this section of their lives or I'll take this person, or how did that process work?
I hung on for dear life. It was, my first breath.
Craig did a lot of editing. I can sit and write a book pretty quickly. It's what I do. Craig did a lot of editing. He did a lot of fine tuning, and he was our liaison with the Schenck family, as to keep them happy. With the daughter and granddaughter of Nick, who they couldn't have been nicer. They didn't exactly cooperate with us, but they didn't stand in our way either. And we did get one nice quote that Papa Nick never loved life more than when he was walking around Palisades Park.
I see.
And also, Craig handed me when we first met a box of archival material concerning both Nick and Joe. Not that I haven't gone through some archives on my own since, but that was really the key to the story that hadn't been told yet, and that was the work of Al Merrill, who preceded us is Schenck Files.
Lots of reading, lots of research, and both was a pretty deep collection of literature material on Hollywood, old Hollywood, and but it's forensic. It's an exercise in kind of cobble things together.
I once spent an entire day in an archive, and I came up with one piece of paper, and it was a letter from Lillian Gish to Pansy Schenck on the occasion of Joe's funeral, in which she talked about how her mom worked at Palisades Park, and again, what Nick was like back in those days, and gave us a whole fill-in on a picture that really hadn't been painted before. So it was worth it, completely worth it. But it's a long day with the white cotton gloves on, and
yeah, for sure, all that. They were involved in so much stuff, right? So I knew so many people, so I imagine the research ran deep. For people who are tuning in, and like I said, we know Louis B. Mayer, we know Jack Warner, Harry Cohn, Daryl Zanuck. Can you both, I know this is in the book, but can you talk a little bit about what made them even more powerful than those guys? I mean, what did they exactly run?
Well, they sort of invented the studio system, which dominated show business for the first half of the 20th century. The whole idea of having multiple writers working separately on a single project, very, very assembly line-like thinking to making movies.
Right.
And it was done that way right up through when television took over. And plus, the content of the movies they made was just, it really taught Americans how to be. There was just there was a small town feel where father was always right, the good guys always won. There weren't a lot of disturbing films being made by either MGM, 20th Century Fox, or United Artists.
Right.
Which represent
over at Universal, there were all kinds of disturbing movies being made,
and Warner Brothers, but
Warner Brothers, right?
On top of almost a third of the output of Hollywood, in addition to the foundation of the Academy and so many other anecdotes in the book.
Oscars were invented by Joe Schenck.
Yeah.
When the Nazis tried to take over Hollywood during the Great Depression, a lot of the studios, including the ones the Schencks ran, were criticized for not pulling the plug on Germany quicker. But what they didn't know was that they were also financing an undercover spy mission to infiltrate the German-American Bund and the Friends of New Germany and Silver Shirts in L.A. and keeping them from really getting into the studios and causing any problems.
Were they afraid of the Nazis at all? Did they know that Hitler had planned to kill them and publicly execute these guys? Was that, I don't know if anything came out of how they actually felt about some of those threats.
Yeah, I think that they were disturbing. Some of them had been in Europe recent enough to see what the situation was. And the Nazis in the United States were brazen enough to say things out loud that Jews are a cancer upon America that need to be cut out. So that going to battle with them with clandestine efforts, espionage, if you were, on Hollywood Boulevard, probably didn't bother their consciences much. But there was money to be made in Germany, and they really did wait till the last second before they pulled that plug.
Right. And everything the section of the book about, like you had referenced earlier, with the mob, and they were smarter than them, and they actually found a way to work with them to line up their own pockets. But when the mob was, now correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression was that Robert Montgomery, who was I believe at that point was either the president of SAG or pretty high up there in SAG anyways, he tipped off one of the investigators to investigate organized crime in Hollywood. I mean, if he hadn't had done that, I can't help but wonder if their power would have remained there, or if they still would have been involved in Hollywood. I mean, did he play a big part in getting rid of them?
Well, Robert Montgomery was a real life tough guy,
right?
And he's playing Philip Marlowe at the time, which is just perfect.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't think the Nazis were going to get into the studios the way they had hoped. If it hadn't been Robert Montgomery, it would have been somebody. I mean, there were a lot of spines there. Everybody was just going to roll over. They were too used to having Gentiles attacking them for their power. It was automatic that they were going to keep those people out. Yeah.
Sorry, you mean that's with the Nazis or with the organized crime?
I think the Nazis never had a shot, because the second they showed up, which was only weeks after Hitler took over,
Right.
The Friends of New Germany show up, and these are agents directly sent by Hitler and Goebbels to win the hearts and minds of California, take over Hollywood, and then make pro-Nazi movies and hopefully take over America without firing a shot.
Right.
Never had a chance. First of all, the clowns that Hitler sent were egotists, and one of the first things that the clandestine Jewish spies did was that they just started spreading rumors about each other, so that Schwinn and Winterhalter didn't get along, and then Robert Pape ends up going back to Germany because he's tired of California because everybody's stupid, and they kind of did it in a non-violent way. I mean, later on, gangsters did punch Nazis in California, but that was long after the real threat of a Hollywood takeover was gone.
And, we see how much, like you had said, like these clearly were great entrepreneurs, invented the Hollywood studio system, invented the Oscars and everything. Did they have much, were they good at actually, like, creatively speaking with the films produced, or was it a matter more of knowing the right people to use, like bringing Zanuck into Fox and things like that?
I think early on they identified some key talent, some which isn't no small feat to identify futures and current actors and actresses who add value to the marketplace. Joe is best friends with Buster Keaton, and obviously the whole Fatty Arbuckle scandal that Joe paid the legal bills for Fatty. So they were really, they were hands on. They were not looking down at the industry from 30,000 feet. They were day to day, and they were hands on, and maybe Joe much more so with the talent directly than Nick. But I think both of them had a really firm grasp on.
Well, although Nick would, when he would travel across country on the train, he would read, and every once in a while, Irving Thalberg getting a book from Nick Schenck saying, "Make a movie out of this."
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So yeah. He's painting with a very broad brush, but he's not going to let anything come out of MGM that he doesn't approve of.
Right. Now, Craig, you mentioned that one of your favorite parts of the book is the Nick's involvement with the park that they created. Is there, for you, Michael, is there a favorite section? I mean, they were involved in so many things, from Fatty Arbuckle and the mob and Nazis. I mean, do you have
I like the Marilyn Monroe section.
Oh yeah. I was just going to ask about that.
And it really is near the end of the book, because Joe is an old man, probably no longer at the peak of his power, but still head of a major studio, and he's lost some vitality. And one of the pool girls he has in his mansion is Norma Jean, who will later become Marilyn Monroe, and she's named after Norma Talmadge, is his wife. Right. And she becomes his special friend. And then, of course, perverse and casting couch and all of that's absolutely true. But they have a very sweet relationship with one another that goes on long after the sex is over. He puts her in a bungalow in the backyard, and then builds a tunnel so she can get into the house without being seen by the, I guess we'd call them the paparazzi now. It was Confidential magazine at the time they were worried about. And he directs her career into superstardom, and never takes any credit for it because she's got it. And, he does at one point dish her off to Columbia, but she's not there long. She takes one boat ride with Harry Cohn and comes back angry and fired.
Right.
And Shelley Winters, her old roommate, said that Marilyn wasn't that big of a pushover. She wasn't going to go with somebody she didn't like. She liked Joe Schenck. She called him Uncle Joe, just like the cliche. Her concrete asphalt jungle cliche.
Right.
And when he's had a stroke and he's sick in bed, and Marilyn's giving an interview to Dorothy Kilgallen in New York City, and she says, "Have you seen Joe?" And Dorothy writes, "I knew she wasn't talking about DiMaggio. She was talking about Joe Schenck, because he's going to be her friend no matter what. And she said, "Oh, next time I'm back in LA, I'm absolutely going to have to go visit him." So it's just you hear horrible things about the casting couch, but just some friendships were made as well.
Yeah. Do you think without him, she perhaps? I mean, I guess we can only speculate what would have come of her, but it seems as though he really helped her career.
All of her movies, all of her famous movies are 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she does one RKO picture early on, maybe another one for Warner Brothers. She does a film noir, Don't Bother to Knock. But then after that, it's all 20th Century Fox. So
he was a man. Michael's earlier point, she had the it factor, and she took it very seriously. And she, I know she studied with Elia Kazan, and she slept with Elia Kazan.
Yeah.
And so she really, she wanted to do good material and smart material. She was willing to take the steps necessary to be more than just another pretty face out in Hollywood.
I heard a theory recently that the Actors Studio really didn't do her any favors, because it taught her to use her personal experiences in her acting, and all of her personal experiences were so sad, that it would be hard to get her out of that funk to play a happy scene, because the method didn't work to make her happy.
Well, the book will be out on September 24th, I believe, right? It's very soon.
Sounds good.
Right around the corner.
That's right.
Yeah. The 24th.
Searching around for my calendar.
Yeah, no, I have it here on the advanced readers edition that I was fortunate to get. Says November 24th, 2014. I imagine it will be available. Sorry, 2024, 2014. I went back in the past. 2024, my mistake.
Not the edition, unfortunately.
And I imagine it'll be fairly easy to find online.
At a bookstore near you, sure.
Target, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, bookstore near you, yeah, of course.
Great. Are you, if people want to follow you both, are you both social media guys? Or I know some people hate that question that I have on, but where can people find you online?
We're on, are you on Facebook, Craig? I think you are. I'm on Facebook.
LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
Instagram. That's where we sometimes do Instagram together. Yes.
Great. Fantastic.
Mogul TikToks, believe it or not.
That's right.
There's a channel. There's a TikTok channel for the book?
I don't think there's a channel for the book. I just kind of posted a couple custom.
Oh, okay.
Mogul. But that's a good idea.
Yeah. Hey, any way to get the word out.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's the most powerful brothers in show business history that you've never heard of, and after you read this book, you'll never forget them.
Yeah, I think if you're serious about the arts, it's a must read. I think people will really enjoy it, and I'm glad that you did, Robert, as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
I agree.
Robert.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, no, like I said, it was a real page turner and a part of film history that no one really knows. So if you're a classic Hollywood fan or a film historian, you'll certainly love every page as much as I did.
American history as well as film history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you again so much. And
thank you, Robert.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner. To your top left in just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching, and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.